Welcome back to Killershrewfan's Spooktacular Toy Reviews. As a huge fan of Halloween, it may not be the biggest surprise when I tell you I'm also a huge fan of horror movies. Sometimes for the good old campy cheese factor, sometimes for the effects and creature designs, and sometimes just because I want to see if a movie, a work of fiction, can actually evoke such a primal reaction as fear in me. Well, the last place I expected to be scared was in the Netflix series Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. The third season of the show premiered a new dinosaur villain, the Scorpius Rex, the first hybrid dinosaur of Wu's hand, and I gotta say, there were moments with this creature, specifically the thunderstorm scene, that gave me the creeps. I don't know if it was the dark atmosphere, or its lanky, almost humanoid appearance and behavior, or both that creeped me out, but I watched this episode alone and in the dark, and it genuinely got to me. I think it's safe to say that this was the most off-putting and easily most monstrous hybrid the franchise ever gave us. We've seen both Trevorrow and Bayona's hybrid dinosaurs try to scare us on the big screen, but that's the thing about those two creations. They still felt like dinosaurs. The Scorpius Rex, on the other hand, looked and behaved like something completely nightmarish. Although the design wasn't to everyone's taste, I thought it worked, and needless to say, was excited for any tie-in toy or model that would come with the third season. Well, Mattel wound up making two, which is fitting since there were two in the third season. One was larger and electronic, while the other was a smaller, more posable option that came with a Kenji human figure and gyrosphere. To keep this review manageable, I'm going to be focusing on the Danger Pack offering, but I will give a brief overview of the Slash and Battle Scorpius later on. But getting into the Danger Pack, here you can get a nice clean look at the open concept presentation and all that is included with the set. If we remove the Scorpius Rex itself, we can get a good look at the package art for the Dino Escape line. First off, you can see that Toro makes an appearance on the left-hand side, and as you move to the right, you can see a paddock in a jungle area of Isla Nublar. However, the paddock has been torn open and the dinosaur inside has escaped as the sun sets across the island. In the top left corner, you have got the Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous style logo, and on the opposite side, you can see the Netflix series advertisement. Moving along the bottom, you can see Darius next to the Dino Escape logo, as well as the title of the set in various languages. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, you have got a little indicator of how Kenji goes in the gyrosphere, along with a 4+ years warning. The back of the box has a little diagram of everything you get, including the Scorpius Rex, Kenji, and his gyrosphere. The bottom right-hand corner shows what else is available in this line. It's the Raptor Squad 4-pack, aka the biggest waste of retail and collection shelf space imaginable at this point. And as always, we are reminded to get the Jurassic World Facts app so that we can scan a digital copy of the dinosaur into our phones. Overall, I quite like the look of the packaging here. It might not be my favorite from the line, I still appreciate the simplicity of the Dino Rivals box art, but I do think it's one of Mattel's better showings. But enough about the box art, let's get to the toys themselves. I'll briefly discuss Kenji and the gyrosphere, but I will not be removing them in order to preserve the packaging as best as I can. I hate blister packaging. I hate it! Anyway, speaking on the Kenji figure, I think Mattel did a good job of capturing the character's likeness. The only other kid we have gotten up to this point was Darius, and that figure was a bit hit and miss in my eyes. Here it looks pretty spot on, and you have got the standard points of articulation you would expect with this figure. As far as the gyrosphere goes, I'm uncertain if this is a repack of an earlier release or something entirely new, but it is nice to see the vehicle again, especially in a CC line since it was involved in the series. I don't recall seeing a gyrosphere implemented in Season 3, but I know it showed up in the first season, so better late than never to have included it with a Camp Cretaceous toy. It looks good at a surface glance, and it will actually be my first gyrosphere in my Jurassic collection, so that's good at least. But now for the main event, here is the Scorpius Rex out of the box and looking pretty good. If you weren't a fan of the final design in the show, you might find yourself actually preferring this toy, as it feels a bit more dinosaur in appearance and less demonic frog. In fact, when you consider the big picture of Mattel's design, there's actually a lot of disparities present between the toy and show counterpart. The mouth appears less wide on the toy, but the skull feels more broad and rounded than the narrow, angular head of the creature we got in the show. It's missing the quill mohawk and humanoid thumb, which I found oh so unsettling, and its proportions feel much less gangly than the actual creature. You could probably chalk any of these differences up to Mattel trying to simplify the design or just not having a final design when the toy went into production, but all of them together really add up to a very different creature. Like I said, that may be more to your taste depending on how much you like the design in the show, but for me, it's a bit of a letdown. Oh well, here's hoping Nanmu or someone else jump on creating a screen-accurate model of that ugly brute. But getting into the nitty-gritty of the sculpt, you can see that the head is extremely bony in appearance and captures that almost abelosaurid shape. The eyes are done in an orange color with a black pupil. I know the electronic version has a variant between a round and cat-slit pupil, but I'm uncertain if that's the same situation with the Danger Pack offering. You can see the teeth along the upper mandible are sculpted in groups, while the teeth on the lower jaw are more individual and interlocking with the upper groups. Of course, they have been dulled down for safety reasons, and if you open the jaw, you can also see a second inner row of teeth around the perimeter of that flat pink tongue. These are unpainted, which is a bit of a bummer. They just sort of look like weird growths without some sort of coloration, but I suppose painting them might have been a bit tricky. It's just a way to convey the sort of snaggle-toothed appearance of the hybrid, but at the end of the day, I think I prefer this one with the mouth shut. Moving from the head down, you can see you have got these sort of layered armored plate scales along the neck, as well as some larger raised scales across the neck, limbs, and torso. The figure sports some lovely muscle tones around the shoulder blade that have been saddled with tension lines around the shoulder and that jutting sternum. And of course you have the scale work that continues all the way down the length of the tail, where you can see those venomous quills sprouting up. The arms are quite well muscled and feature the arm quills on the forearms as opposed to the elbows, but I'm sure that was done for articulation purposes. The thighs are also quite muscular and covered in those raised scales. If you move down the legs, you can see that the kneecaps have been sculpted with some nice bunching up skin. The calves have been rendered with some nice muscle tones, and you have got the ankle spike before getting down to those big feet complete with sickle claw. The toe and finger claws on this figure are not painted. Go figure. But I think it's actually okay here, as the color of the figure itself works for the color of the claws. It's not like, I don't know, green with green claws, you know? The color itself is primarily black, with a yellow underbelly transitioning into the midsection of the creature. There is a very subtle transition between shades of black across the top, but it's not something that's immediately noticeable, especially under these lights. So yeah, speaking in terms of the technical execution, this seems to be pretty standard for Mattel. The detail is all there, the paint is simple, yet hits the right notes to communicate the idea of the color scheme of the creature, and although it may not be 100% accurate to the show, it still has its own appealing design that captures enough of the essence of the actual creature. Now, the reason I chose to open this one up for review instead of the Slash and Battle are simple. For one thing, this one feels appropriately sized, while the Slash and Battle has been massively upscaled to accommodate the action features, but we'll get into that later. Also, and perhaps more importantly, this one is fully articulated, while the articulation on the larger figure is very limited. This makes it the better option for display amongst my other action figures, as there's more room to pose it how I want, and it sizes better with the rest of them. We'll get into measurements and comparisons later, but first let's talk about the articulation. You've got 11 points of articulation on the figure by my count. Obviously, the mouth can open and close like we talked about. Then the neck is on a ball and socket joint so it can rotate and move up and down. The shoulders are the same way. They can be moved forward and back, in and out. Then the elbows can be twisted so that the palms can face in or down. And of course, they can bend up and down as well. The thighs have their usual in and out rotation and can go forwards and backwards, and then this joint is kind of interesting at the kneecap here. You can rotate the feet in and out at the kneecap as opposed to at the ankle. I will say the usual forward and backward rotation is a bit limited on this one, and I'm not sure if that's a direct result of that ability to rotate the ankle in and out here. And then of course the tail can rotate. All of these points of articulation allow you to create some pretty unique poses for your shelf, and if you want to recreate some of the more iconic movements of the Scorpius Rex, you can with this figure. For example, you have the leaping sort of pose, the ready, set, go pose as it's creeping after Yaz, the borderline iconic screeching pose, and my personal favorite, the just got an entire visitor center dropped on his head pose. One thing you do need to watch out for with this figure is the quality of the paint on the neck. Almost every one I've seen in the wild has had some paint wear around this joint. Either the black has chipped away to reveal yellow on the back, or the yellow on the throat has been chipped away. I thought I got the best one, but actually when I opened it up and started moving it, I saw this massive paint chip that I couldn't see while it was in the packaging. So yeah, it's a bit annoying that QC seems to still be hit and miss with the paint on these things, and that I can't, see that when I'm buying it, but hopefully now it's been addressed for these later runs. As far as the size of this figure goes, when he's in a fairly neutral stance, he comes in at around 13 inches long or around 33 centimeters and stands in at about 7 inches off the ground or around 18 centimeters, bearing in mind that some variation in either measurement is possible in different positions. For size comparisons, here it is with the Camp Cretaceous Soundstrike Parasaurolophus by Mattel, which seemed to be a favorite snack for the Scorpius, and I think these two size up pretty well with one another, and of course can be used to create some nice displays. Next up, here it is with some other CC creatures. First up, we have Grim the Baryonyx, who was unfortunately spared the experience of having to deal with the Scorpius Rex, but you can see that they are pretty similar in terms of their size. Now we have the Sinoceratops Soundstrike, and you can see that the Scorpius comes up a bit higher than that big figure, even when crouched. Then, of course, we have Blue, who actually takes on one of the Scorpius Rexes in the later episodes of the season. Spoiler alert for a show that's been out for months now. And yeah, I do think they size up pretty well with one another, and the posability of both allows you to somewhat recreate that battle, which is fun. And of course, it wouldn't be a Mattel review without comparing the figure to our good friend, Carnage the Carnotaurus, which I still hold is the more accurate size representation of the JW Carno, and still one of the best things Mattel has done. Oh, and here it is with Chris Pratt, because again, what would a Jurassic review be on this channel without him showing up in some capacity, especially when it comes to Mattel and their obsession with slapping him on almost every box. Then, just for fun, here it is with the Soundstrike Majungasaurus, which was another ugly brute by Mattel, but at least with the Scorpius Rex, the ugliness feels deliberate. And there it is with another hybrid dinosaur from the franchise. It's the Destroy and Devour Indominus Rex. I don't currently have an opened Indoraptor to compare this guy to, but I do think these two size up quite well with one another. Oh yeah, almost forgot to bring in a Rex. Here it is with the Thrash and Throw, still my personal favorite Mattel Rex. And yeah, hopefully all of that gives you an idea of the size you can expect with this figure, while proving my point that this smaller one fits better with the 3 3/4 inch scaled figures. So that was the Danger Pack Scorpius Rex. Overall, I do like this figure. The articulation is nice, as is the sculpt work, and it fits well with the rest of the line while coming with another human character and accessory, which I have been hoping Mattel would start doing more of, and it looks like they finally are. So what can I say about the Slash and Battle offering? I mean, it's largely the same figure in terms of sculpt and paint, but like the previous version of the Indoraptor, the biggest difference you'll find is the size, which has been scaled up way too much in order to accommodate the play features. The Slash and Battle toy has some buttons that allow you to open the jaws, triggering a roar, and work the claws in a scratching post manner, again with added sound effects. The tail can also be swung in a way that reminds me of the old Kenner Stegosaurus, so you can get that quill strike feature. Unfortunately, all of these extra gimmicks come at the cost of posability, as almost all of the joints are tied into those action features. Basically, all you can do is rotate the head, which, to Mattel's credit, I do think is cool, since there is a gimmick tied to the skull. The fact that you can move the neck and still work that feature is impressive to me. And then the legs can be posed somewhat as well. This lack of posability and the exaggerated size size really make it hard to justify opening this figure to me, as I usually prefer my Mattel stuff in box unless it goes along with the rest of my display. That, and unlike the Danger Pack offering, this is a one and done piece. You can't put it back in the box once opening, and although that's not an easy thing to do with any of Mattel's products, at least it can be done with the smaller version if you ever get tired of displaying it on its own. So is there anything I like more about this version? Well, I always do like electronic gimmicks. That's the point of an action figure like these. They're meant to have play features, but it sucks when it's such a detriment to other facets of the toy. It really is annoying that you can't really change those outstretched zombie arms on this one because they're tied to the scratching action, for example. Plus, all you have to do is put Owen or Blue with this figure to see that the Scorpius has almost ballooned up to T-Rex size to accommodate those intrusive gimmicks, and yeah, it doesn't work for me. On a positive note, this larger size lets Mattel's sculpt work be a little more crisp across the board. The quills and teeth also appear less dull on this one, which I like, and the inside teeth have actually been painted, which is a big plus. But if I could only recommend one, I think that would come down to who it's for. If, like me, you're looking for something to scale with the rest of your collection and want to be able to pose it alongside your other figures, then it's a no-brainer. Get the Danger Pack offering. This way, you're meeting your collecting needs and getting a human figure to boot. However, I can definitely see kids being more drawn to the Slash in Battle offering. I mean, if you're a kid playing with these toys, it's easier to be able to control the action with the push of a button rather than having to halt everything to repose the figure every time you want to do something new. Plus, I can see the electronics being a big lure for children, and I doubt they're as concerned with scale as I am. Still, it does leave me wishing the smaller, more posable version got the same treatment in regards to sculpt and finish as the larger one, as it does ultimately feel like the one geared more towards adult collectors. It's not a bad figure by any means, but it sucks that there's a little give and take on both sides rather than a single perfect choice. I guess there are two in the show, and perhaps neither of the ones we saw were fully grown, so if you want to use that mindset to justify getting both and just having one that's a little bigger, then go for it. But yeah, overall, I do still dig both of them, but for different reasons. They seem to reach Mattel's usual standards, while also displaying the usual pitfalls that aren't drastic enough to ruin the rest of the toy for me. As always, I want to know what you guys think of these figures. Do you own them yet? Which do you prefer? And what are your thoughts on the Scorpius Rex in general? Would you like to see an actual model of that thing, perhaps from Myuu? Leave a comment down below with all of your thoughts, and as always, thank you so much for tuning in to today's review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again for the next one. Until then, take care out there, and bye-bye.